Greetings to Augies all over the world, from as far away as Australia, the UK, all over the United States. Good to see you all here today on a beautiful August Saturday. In fact, the very last day of August. It's going to be September, which means fall will soon be in the air here. Our leaves around here on the aspens tend to change color around the last week in September, but we've had such a late spring that the flower peak season in the Rockies actually got moved back by about 3 weeks. It's usually the end of July, and the peak flowers were in early to mid-August. Let's see. In terms of news going on here, nothing much new to report. Just happy to be here. I got 2 videos up this past week. One video was about putting up the dipole. Finally got it to work, figured out what I did wrong. And then the next video was just sort of a coda to that video. It was about a knot that I had seen in QST about how to attach a rope to a coax cable so you can take the strain off where the connector is, and build a little video about that. I've asked people to tell me the name of the knot because I don't know it. I've received several credible answers. The one that's most common is that it's a type of lashing used on the end of ropes to keep them from unraveling, I guess. This knot is designed to hang something to hang the coax up without putting strain on the end. And it spreads the grip over an area about that big, so it doesn't grip any one spot in the coax too hard. And we're getting quite a few features. Yeah, there is some discussion about WSTX with the new mode FT4. Apparently, FT8 kind of took over the spaces just above where JT65 is, and then when FT4 came out, there was, and continues to be, controversy over where it should be. If you go up much more, you start spilling into the 14.080, which is the bottom of the RIDI band. So something's going to have to give. I suspect we'll start eating into the RIDI band. There's not that many RIDI stations out there now. Anyway, hello Netherlands. Nice to see you. Volume is very low, Dave. Okay, let me turn it up. Let's see how this is. How is this right here? I've got it turned all the way up. I was playing a little bit with the volume in. Turn that up too. Trying to find out where it was clipping, and I found a spot in it's buried down in the sound system in Windows. So tell me how my audio is here. Working on a multi-band vertical, 2-inch down to 38 feet tall. Wow, you're going. It's FT4 on 14081. Okay, greetings from North Carolina. Hope you guys aren't in for too much of a mess. It looks like that storm has veered north. Greetings from Denmark. Hello. Let's see. Getting lined up to start on HF and wondering which bands I should concentrate on first. 40 meters. I'd like to know how to handle my antenna situation once you get a radio. Build a dipole if you can, if you've got the room for it. No, it's not the noose knot, although several people have suggested that. Yeah, 40 then 20, that's right. Your volume seems pretty low. Better, much better, better, good now, much better. Okay, good volume now, very good. Okay, just as long as it's clear and it's not over modulating. I've got the OBS, which is the software I'm using for the live stream, set for max volume. And I turned up the volume a little bit on the microphone itself. I can turn it up a little bit more, but I don't want it to clip. I was listening to a live stream from last week, and I go, "Ooh, that volume's just not right." Okay, yeah, 705 is a nice little radio. Hello from Wyoming. Very good. Well, let's turn to questions that have popped up in this past week. I got sort of caught up last week, but then I found this stack of questions that haven't been answered yet. So I'll get caught up with these, and then we'll start working off the backlog a little bit. All right, 73 Augies and Dave, thanks. There is a feature that is enabled called Super Chat. If you have any interest in that, it's a way of financially supporting the channel. I try to answer all the questions, so you don't need to make your question stand out. If you do Super Chat, it makes your question stand out. But I'm grateful for anything received. I really appreciate it. But it is there for anybody who wants to take advantage of it. You can, with the Super Chat, put in any amount of support there. I think $1.99 is the lowest they'll go. Okay, this first one is from David B. Henderson, VK2KWY, and it's about Echolink. I have said in the past several times that I don't know anything about Echolink, and he points out that there are a lot of things you can do with Echolink. As far as I understand it, it's a way of connecting analog, meaning FM, repeaters, and he talked about how I can find out more on Wikipedia or on www.echolink.org. Now, I will save this note out, and I would like to do a video on Echolink when I learn more about it, and we'll just hold that out there. Okay. Now this one is an interesting one. This is from Boyeatpie. Okay, and he signs it Watson KE0LXD, and he's doing some work on some antennas. Let me see if I can bring up his question. Let's see, Boyeatpie. So we're going to go to search for Boyeatpie. Okay, Boyeatpie right there. All right, he has a picture. This is the base of a helical antenna. Okay, that's the metal reflector right there. Here is where the feed line comes through to the helix. Each helix is like a wavelength around. I've never played with helical antennas. And he asked, what's the purpose of this plate down here? The answer is to add reactance, because this will change the impedance of the antenna, from that of the tube right there. And going on the outside of the tube, the velocity factor is about 0.95. It might be less because of the width of the tube. This copper piece on there looks to me like it adds capacitance to the line for matching purposes. He's got another picture here. Come on. Yeah, that one doesn't want to open up. And I don't see any controls to make it bigger. This is a little vane that has been added inside the helical antenna. You can see the helix there. And again, that will change reactance. I'm not sure whether it's inductive or capacitive, but it will change the reactance of it. This type of thing won't work at HF because it will get to be just flat too big. So let me go back to the top here. So I think that answers that question as the purpose of those. I looked through the ARRL antenna book and also the Rothamel book put out by the German Amateur Radio Society, and could not find any mention of anything like this in any of the discussions of microwave antennas. These are both for 1200 megahertz or 1.2 gigahertz. So that's my guess on that. Hello, Wisconsin Military Academy. And let's see. March 2020, what is this for? I see 705. Oh, it used to have a 706. And Cliff Young passed his extra. Very good to you. And let's see. How does one prevent interference when routing multiple antenna feed lines through the same access hole from the ham shack and the outside? If you use coax, you shouldn't have an issue. You should ground that coax using a lightning arrestor at the entry to your shack so that there's no RF on the outside of the coax. And otherwise, all the RF will be inside the coax and it's no problem. And let's see. Oh, okay. Thanks for that. And Lee Harrell says, you give more of yourself to Ham family than anyone I know. Well, thank you. And you're welcome. The tech videos have been just updated. And I've got to do the generals, and the extras will get a refresh next year. So, okay. This is from Larry Jenkins, K0LAJ. He was listening to the QA last week, and during the show there was a mention that TG Electronics is out of business. Doing an internet search, I found that Tim Gerdine, the owner of TG, passed away on July 11th. The following is a link to his obituary, which he gave, and I am very sorry to hear him go. I read the obituary. He died in his late 50s. He had some serious medical issues. And one of the things he did was to create this, I'll show you. This is a little booster device, boost regulator, that will take the 12 point whatever out of my battery and pump it up to 13.8 for my Yaesu Ftdx 3000, which really does not like to operate on anything less than about 13.3, really. So okay, new ham here. Beyond having my ticket when transmitting about 300 milliwatts, does my radio need to be an FCC approved device, or can I roll my own, assuming I put proper RF safeguards in place? There's no 300 milliwatt limit. As an amateur radio operator, you most certainly can roll your own. And yes, you should obey the RF limits, but no, it does not need to be FCC type accepted, unless you start selling it. But you can roll your own. You can publish an article in QST about it, so others can roll their own also. But the type acceptance is on ham bands is just for the scanning feature, because they don't want you to be able to scan a certain range of now obsolete cell phone frequencies. Otherwise, there's no type acceptance required as long as the radio transmit only in the ham bands. It can receive outside the ham bands. So, yeah. And I've got a question from Naga Koduro. Wants me to make a video on HF-VHF phone patch. It's so rare in the United States anymore. It used to be just about every repeater was equipped with a phone patch, and people did patching on HF back when AT&T charged a fortune for long distance, 50 cents a minute in the 1950s. Okay, that was very expensive, and so people would do phone patches over ham radio, which was legal as long as the contents of the communication were so unimportant as to not merit recourse to the commercial network, which is a rather vague definition. Okay. Dave, are you planning on going to Quartz Fest in 2020? Yes, I am. I'm also going to the Duke City Ham Fest later this month. I'm still hoping for Pacificon in October. Dayton next year also, and prior to Dayton there will be a ham fest in the Provo area of Utah, Provo-Orem, and I have agreed to speak there, so we'll see how that's going. Power limit is 1500 watts, peak envelope power, that is true. Dave, does through the wall or window coax work well? Yeah, sure. Yeah, the peak envelope power, it's actually turned out to be a power reduction for those operating AM, because on AM you took the average plate current input and multiplied that by the voltage across the plates, and that was your power in. 1000 watts was the max. On single sideband, the PEP was such that you could actually raise the power from that. On AM, however, the power is a function not only of the carrier but of the modulation. And so if you had a carrier at 1000 watts, the peak envelope power could be as high as 2000 watts. So people had to back off on that. Let's see, Ron, I don't discuss politics in this forum at all, so I won't do that here. Amplifiers are expensive, yes. 40-year-old Drake 4L4B had it renovated with new parts. I'm glad you were able to find somebody who could renovate it, and glad you were able to find the parts. And you get yourself a very nice amplifier. What will happen with a transmitter if you accidentally transmit without an antenna? Most, not all, most radios have protection circuits for just this eventuality. If the antenna lead is open or shorted, it will really roll back the power to those output transistors so that there won't be an issue. Some radios, notably QRP radios, you could actually damage the output transistors on that. Phone patch was used for communications for Vietnam service members too. Absolutely true. An ARRL film with Dick Van Dyke. I'll have to look for it. Barry Goldwater did a lot of phone patching from Vietnam. He had a superstation, a very large station, and he regularly, when he was in Arizona, would do phone patches for service personnel, as did many other Mars members. They would do them, Mars's frequencies are slightly outside of the ham bands, where you can use the ham bands. And the problem is that the ham who receives the overseas signal from the serviceman had then to pay for the long distance call. So Barry Goldwater could do that, and he did it happily and freely. I had the opportunity to shake his hand once when I was an ROTC cadet at BYU. I bet you are not taking the octopus antenna to Quartz Fest. Probably won't, but probably will take the buddy pole for there. Okay, let's see. A local repair shop has a ham radio operator runs it, so I knew my Drake L4B was in good hands. What is the best location for a preamp in an HF receive-only antenna? The best location for the preamp is at the antenna. At the antenna. So you'll have to run DC over the coax or provide a separate lead to power the amp. But the amp should be right at the antenna to give you the lowest noise. The MFJ receive-only loop has a preamp. I have that. It has the preamp in there, which I can turn on and off from a switch right here in the shack. And I use it to feed my RSP1A SDR play radio. Whoopsie Quartz Fest. Well, I hope you make it there. What is your opinion of the isotron style antennas? Well, that is an interesting question. Isotron makes some very strangely shaped antennas and claims wonderful performance from them. I've never actually seen one. I've never spoken with anybody who has one. To my jaundiced eye, it doesn't look like it would be a good radiator. But he claims to have done some fancy things with his engineering and got all his reactances matched up so he'd have a good radiation resistance. I would, before I purchased one, because they're not cheap, go talk to someone who has one and maybe even try it. That's what I would say. They've been for sale for years. Okay. How much different is the new question pool compared to the old pool? Not much different. They've added more information on software, digital modes. There's more in there about digital modes. There's a whole chapter just devoted to digital modes. That's the only difference I can see. I am trying to get an assistant so I can get this general show on the road. I've got to do that because next year we've got the next refresh of the extra videos. Isotropic radiator, yeah. Okay. This next one is from Charles M. Mitchel, KN4QEH. And he says, I have a Ten Tec Jupiter, which I have one in the closet. I used to use it as my main HF rig. Is there a connection on the rear to connect an automatic antenna tuner? I'm assuming for band data. I got out my Jupiter book and looked through it and could not find a connection on there that would give a band data out. He's trying to match the MFJ 939 to it. Let's see what that is. Let's go up here to the top screen and we'll go to MFJ 939. Let's see what that is. Okay, that's an antenna tuner. Well, I'll tell you what my experience was with my Ftdx 3000, which absolutely does put out band data on the back. And I was using a loop at the time, so I had to use the wide range tuner. The tuner recognizes the frequency, and if it has a match already in it for that frequency, it'll pop right to it. If not, it will attempt to match it by taking some measurements and doing some calculations. And I finally took out the little interface device. I didn't see it doing any good. So it's sitting on a shelf here somewhere. And I never used it. I just used my antenna tuner with automatic antenna tuner that I used it with the Yaesu. And after operating for quite a while, it had a memorized position for just about every frequency I used. So it was almost instant. So that's what I'd say about the Jupiter. You can do the same thing. The Jupiter has a very robust output amplifier. And a momentary problem with that is not going to damage it at all. Okay, good evening from Denmark. Hello, Dan. In my opinion, what is the best method for learning CW? I have a word for it, a single word. Perseverance. Perseverance is the method. There is the so-called Koch method, and there is a Koch trainer that you can get on the internet. It's really old, but it does run, and it will do things not only training you 2 letters at a time, then it adds a third, adds, you know, and so on until you get to all the letters and the all the numbers and all the important punctuation marks. And you can go, it allows you to kind of move at your own pace. I would say practice 15 to 20 minutes a day. I wouldn't go more than that. Otherwise, your poor brain starts to spin inside your head. But it works very well. You're learning it by sound, learning the difference between letters by sound. I would say that that's pretty good. The trainer also will give you code in the form of a standard QSL, like something you might use on or hear on the air. You can also interject noise and interject interference, just like it would be on a real HF channel. So it's a nice little trainer. Let's see. Why aren't more common commercial radios all banned on transmit? Because radios have, for all services other than amateur radio, radios must be type accepted in the United States, okay? They must be type accepted. You cannot use a radio on a radio service without it being type accepted. And when you start getting, when you get outside the amateur bands, for example, police and fire, okay, they carry radios and they can go between channels, but they do not program their own radios. There's somebody who programs the radios for them, hands them the radio, and they use the radio that way. Okay, in amateur radio service, we can program our own radios to our heart's content. And so you will not find commercial radios that will transmit on all bands, because the radio has to be type accepted for the service that it's going to be used for. And I know that sounds complicated, and it is. And that's why commercial radios are so much more expensive than amateur radios, well, with some exceptions. You've got to show, and it's just a lot that you have to show there. So, this is from PA3, is that Brazil, I think? No, that's the Netherlands. Oh my goodness, my knowledge of prefixes isn't very good. Let's see, amazing CW training app, fully adjustable and free. IZ2UUF Morse Koch CW. Give it a try, look it up on the internet. Oh, G4FON Morse code trainer. That is the one I was thinking of. G4FON. I think the guy who wrote it has passed away, but the piece of software lives on because it's an outstanding way to learn the Morse code. Yeah. Commercial radios can do quite a variety of things. You should know that Yaesu, ICOM, and Kenwood and Elenco sell lots of commercial radios, okay, of all different types. And that's where they make most of their money, okay? And it kind of subsidizes the amateur radio. They truly, I mean, if you got a $5,000 Yaesu Ftdx 5000, how many of those are you going to sell in amateur radio? A few hundred at most? And it's just impossible to make back the R&D and the tooling costs and things like that. So, and of course the Chinese sell lots of commercial radios too. And where the Chinese have gotten into trouble is because they're trying to take their commercial radios and just offer it to you as a ham. If it's Part 90 certified, it's okay. I'll say that in quotes, okay. I mean, I think most people have at least one Chinese radio. This is from W6JIM, Jim, who says TenTec is now selling and shipping their Omni 7 Plus. It would be great if you could do a review on that radio. All I need to do is get one, since you have experience with the Jupiter. The Omni Plus radio is their top-of-the-line radio, and I looked it up on the internet. It has a very nice picture of the radio. The radio, like the Elecraft radios, which are also American-made, do not have all the fancy little weird bells and whistles that the Japanese radios have. But in terms of operating for contesting or DXing, they are outstanding. And the Jupiter, I noted, I got lots and lots of comments on the audio quality, how good it was, how natural sounding the voice was. TenTec makes outstanding radios. TenTec has gone through several hands over the last few years. I'm glad to see them starting to produce radios again. I think they've long moved out of Sevierville in Tennessee. I hope they do well. Like I said, I've got a Jupiter and it works. And the thing, it has a caution in there. It says if you're going to do RTTY for key down, which means full strength, full 100 watts out of the thing, don't do it for more than 30 minutes. Well, shoot, by then you would have fried a Japanese radio. They say if you put a fan on the heatsink, you can be key down indefinitely. So they're very sturdy, very, very sturdy. Okay, let's see here. Coming off of this file. Okay. This is from Mark Brentana, N5PRD. He says he's studying for the general class license. Some of the links on my website do not seem to work. Oops. If you go to ke0lg.net/general, you'll find a list of all the general videos as they currently stand. They're all out of date. I haven't put the new ones up there. But like I said, not much has changed. And so there's some issues in there. Shoot. I'll have to go through and fix them. I'll set this aside so that maybe I'll remember to do something about that. Okay, this next one is from Jim Harris, KF5TPT. And he said, I came home from Huntsville with an RSP1A. Your video was very helpful. Thank you. My rig is an Ftdx 5000M. That's a top-of-the-line radio. A gift from my wife after my FT920 lost a fight with a lightning bolt. What antenna would you recommend? Oh, for the RSP1A. I believe that the Ftdx 5000M has an output on the back. It's probably an RCA phonojack, marked RF. My Ftdx 3000 has one, and it's a little sister to the Ftdx 5000M, which is the big brother. And there should be a jack marked RF. Take that output and feed it directly into the RSP1A. You may need to get some adapters, given you got phono on one end and SMA on the other. I had an adapter cable made by Coax USA, which I think is the same as MFD Digital, something like that. I had an adapter made for me. And then on the in the SDR Uno software, you can click on the band that you're tuning on the radio, and you'll see the entire band as the radio sees it. Okay, the output is taken. There's I believe the RF comes in. There's some filters and a preamp, and then it goes to that, which goes over to the RSP1A. Another thing you can do, if you can't find that jack, there's a jack on the back, I'm positive, marked IF. And that will be the constant IF output before the roofing filters and before any other IF filters. So you get a nice unabridged view of the IF, and then you can tune that with the RSP1A. So either one of those is good. Now, I do use the MFJ 1886 antenna with that radio also. So I've got an antenna switch over here that I can switch which input I want to go into the RSP1A. And that should work. You can use a long wire, but you know, a long wire on one frequency is pretty short on another. So I really like my MFJ 1886. I did a video on it. It will cover from very low frequencies up through the top of HF. It's not really very good on VHF or something like that. You can get one of those discone antennas, discone monitoring antennas, if you want to look at the VHF on that. One thing to be careful of, and one reason I recommend using the RF output, and I'm talking the phonojack one that's with all the other little phonojacks in there, that one, not the antenna output, no. The other, so that you can, you won't overload the front end of the RSP1A. Okay. Got too many files. Okay, this is from Rich Karstensen, W8VK. So this first one, say hello, watch several of your videos. Thank you for what you've done. Wonder if you do a couple segments, help us out with the SDR play model RSP1A. What he wants to do is receive FT8 on the RSP1A, which would mean on his computer, and then also decode it with the WSTR software. To do that, you need a piece of software called Virtual Cable, VB Cable. And what that does is it takes the output of the sound card that you would normally listen to and routes it around to the input of another piece of software that's looking for an audio input. You'd think Windows would have something like this already. But yes, that will do it. You could take it out and put it back in through a different sound card, but that seems like you should be able to do that inside the radio. Now, I have never done this, but it sounds like an interesting idea. And you could certainly do that, get that in there. I'm curious if there's anybody here that like to do that. If I wanted to implement my own amateur digital mode, are there any legal constraints? Yes, there are some. The legal constraint is no more than 300 baud on HF. That's the symbol rate, not the bit rate, the symbol rate. Second, it must be readily receivable by anybody listening without the meaning being obscured. So it can't offer encryption. And if it is not regularly published as a mode, like PSK31 or so on, then you need to end each transmission with a Morse ID. And just DE in your call sign. In fact, the FLDigi gives you the option for doing that with PSK31. You don't have to in the US because PSK31 is considered to be a regularly understandable mode. So you have to... Joe has to check out. Thank you, Joe, for checking in. But yes, you can invent any one you want. Every time somebody thinks they've got the perfect digital mode, somebody comes up with a better one. So PSK31 has had enduring popularity. There's a lot of variants, MFSK, all kinds of things, and they're all listed there in the FLDigi program. Most of those have not caught on. Now, JT65 caught on because of its tremendous weak signal capability. Joe Taylor came up with a better JT9, which took less bandwidth and actually offered better signal to noise. It never really took off. Then he invented FT8, where he took a 1 minute transmission and cut it down to 15 seconds. That took off like hotcakes. We'll see how FT4 does. Any digital mode has to be an order of magnitude better in some way to get people to use it. Okay. Let's see. This is from Don VE3 WPK. Couldn't find the comment section, but knot you demonstrated is a form of frapping. It is used to secure the frayed ends of rope also. Okay. By the way, to find the comments, let me go up here to the top screen and just pull up YouTube. We'll just pull up a video here. Let's take the one with the knot. I want to play it. Let's go ahead and play it. View on YouTube. Okay, and we can do without the noise. Here's the video in not full screen mode. Go underneath. There's a little description about the video. There's some merchandise if you want a t-shirt with my logo on it or a coffee mug. And then underneath are the comments. So that's where the comments are. Okay. And you can add comments anytime. Now, YouTube, your comment automatically goes up. Let's get back to where we were live dashboard here. Okay. Your comments will go up automatically unless YouTube flags it. And it can flag it for two reasons: spam or objectionable content. And those are held for me to look at. Some people are just advertising their own YouTube channel. One wanted me to let a comment through that had a link to a video on cosmetics. I zapped that one. And if there are certain words or links, HTML links, they'll be held for review. I will look at the link and either approve it or not. Now, when I'm going through the normal comments, occasionally I will find a comment that belittles somebody or otherwise makes this a less than safe channel. And I will delete those comments. And I delete all comments having anything to do with politics. So it's got to be purely ham radio oriented. So that's where the comments are. Okay, hope that helped. VB cable works. Okay, digital mode clubs and award system, why not? I mean, clubs can give out awards too. Sometimes I hear digital mode that I don't recognize. There are websites. I think I may have put a link to it on my KE0LAJ.net page that will play different digital modes. I do not know of any software. Oh, Code Masseur is saying FLDigi has RSID and TXID, which allow to automatically identify modes. Cool. Give it a try. I'll have to give it a try too. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. This is John VE3WPK. Okay, he found, but the knot you demonstrated is a form of frapping that is used to secure the frayed ends of rope also. Okay? And this one is from Larry, KI5ACA. Most of my radio time lately has been with FT4 and FT8. Use the Yaesu FT991A, nice radio, and run WSJTX, yes. Want to be able to monitor the quality of my transmission similar to that shown on WSJTX. Any suggestion how I can do that, perhaps an oscilloscope? The screen on the FT991 is just too small. In looking at the quality of the transmission for digital modes, often you're better off looking at it in the frequency domain. So a simple software-defined radio, I happen to like the RSP1A. There are little dongle things that are less expensive, but the RSP1A at least comes with a comprehensive support system and software that really takes advantage of that radio. And even if you just put even like a paperclip antenna on the thing, it's going to pick up your transmission, and you'll be able to look at it in as much detail as you want. For the FT4, you should see it go between frequencies, and so that's what I would suggest. You can always get a spectrum analyzer. I noticed that Regal has one out now for less than $1,000. That is the one major piece of test equipment I lack, the spectrum analyzer. I've been using my little software-defined radio as a spectrum analyzer, but it won't give, spectrum across a very wide range. I do have an oscilloscope from Regal. I love it. It's a very nice scope. I did a video on it once, and it's on my Amazon things to buy page. It's in there. But I would recommend, just since we're talking narrowband transmission here, just use a software-defined whatever little thing to, like the RSP1A, and so you can see it on your screen. That would work. Okay. This next one is from Mark Hogstrom, KN4MIO. He watched the video on station grounding and has some questions. And he sent a picture of his place. This is looking down on his house. This is a Google Earth picture. The shack is on the first floor down here. Okay, the antennas are over here. He's got two antennas. And he's got, for some reason, he's got mains power out here. And he says he has this line buried. And he wants to know where to put the ground and the lightning arresters. Well, the simple answer to your question is at number 2. It should be right there where the coax goes into the house. Okay, you should have an 8-foot ground rod and your lightning arresters there. If you're supposed to have the ground rod all the way under the ground, so you could get a 10-foot one and have a little bit sticking up so you can put your lightning arresters on it. Now, the question becomes, could you put additional lightning arresters out here? Well, first of all, let me say why I say here and not here. If you put it here and you get a lightning strike out here, it'll come in through that and create issues. So here, certainly, this is mandatory. Over here, you can, if you want to, bring those coaxes to the ground, put in a ground rod, okay, a ground rod, and put the put lightning arresters there too. Lightning arrestor insertion loss is about 0.1 dB, so at HF it's minimal, absolutely minimal. And then run your coax this way. Now, if you do that, also run a bare number 6 wire to that ground line also, separate from the other, and bury that, and so it'll kind of be grounded all the way. Now, I don't know where your service panel entrance is. I'm going to assume somewhere over here, okay? You need to also bond your station ground with the utility ground. Again, number 6, copper, bare wire, put that in. You can bury that too, okay? So that is what I would suggest that you do. This over here is optional. This I would consider mandatory. Okay, I hope that helps. Let's go back to the live stream and look at additional questions. All those things just got my call sign, KJ7ISU. Congratulations. Does the maximum symbol rate in the band for digital modes also apply to CW? No. No, there's no upper limit on CW. And some people have experimented sending it at very high speeds. But then you need a machine to record it. CW, I did my master's thesis on this subject, automated decoding of CW, back in the 1980s, the early 80s. And the net of it is it's hard. This is why digital modes have come along, because they're machine decodable. Nothing beats good old-fashioned wetware at decoding CW. But if the code is beautifully and perfectly sent, which it usually isn't, then a machine can decode it pretty well. Why can't I decode marine RIDI? It's probably encrypted, that's why. What they do is, you've got bits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they'll do like a bit flip. They'll go 1, 2, 3, 5, 4. And so everything prints as garbage for everybody else unless they know to do that. It's not very effective encryption, but they do things like that. Learn Electronics has their extra. This is great. CW is the original digital mode. A lot of people say that. I would say as used, as sent by humans, is analog, because the timing on it there are timing specifications, but they're not really observed by people. When I send code, I tend to make my dashes longer than they need to be. But a lot of people, including the ARRL, say it's the original digital mode. I don't beg to differ. I just very politely say that I think it's an analog mode at heart. Some software called MMTY. Yeah, MMTY I think MMTY is free. I can't remember. How many megahertz can I move on 40 meters before I need to retune my tube amp? That depends on your tube amp. Probably 10, maybe 15. You want to just go over there and touch up that tweaking a little bit. After a while, you get used to how much to move it and how much you need to tweak it. Yeah, Ford versus Chevy. Well, I just gave you my opinion on that. SDR Uno has a spectrum analyzer. Yes, you can. Yeah, it gives you the spectrum display. And you can display up to 10 megahertz at once. That's a third of the HF band. Okay. Does your Regal have a math function? Yes. You can get a spectrum using FFT function. Yes, and I've done that. And I've used it in some of the videos when I'm looking at square waves and the odd harmonics and all of this kind of thing. I used it quite a bit when I was evaluating that little German antenna analyzer. And it does do it. It does not claim any particular accuracy, but you can sort of get a feel for where the harmonics are. Master's thesis on CWDK. That's true. It's true. 1984. What do you do if the electric co-op will not let you hook to their ground? I'm very surprised about that because according to the National Electric Code, if you put in additional ground rods, they need to be bonded to the utility ground. So go hit your local electric co-op with a copy of the National Electric Code, or get the ARRL book on grounding and bonding and show them that and show that it is in accordance with the National Electric Code. Digital as in binary, I think is what was meant. Well, yeah. They will cut your service if you hook up. Well, I mean, don't do it without talking to them, okay? But you're creating a possible hazard there, okay? Keep an eye on your meters. They will tell you when to retune. That's true. Okay, now I have gotten through all of the new ones. Let me just go check that to see if there aren't any new ones that came in. Nope. Okay. These old ones, I need to sort these. There are some in here. Here's one from Rig Expert. They said they were going to send me the Rig Expert, which they did. Got it right here. I've gotten to really like this little thing a whole lot, because just with a push of a button you can see the entire band and where the minimum is, and you can immediately discern what you need to do to get your antenna in there. I would suggest you go to your electric utility, to the engineering department, and talk to their safety people, because that's what they need to know about. Okay, good. I've also got a co-op here, and nobody's ever said anything about not bonding to their utility ground, which I have done. My station ground bonded to the utility ground the other end of the house without any problems, without any issues of any kind. The dipole that I put together is doing fine. I had, well, I showed the QSOs that I had with that. And as far as getting close to an hour, yes, it is. And it will be in about 2 minutes here. So I'm not going to introduce any new additional questions. Just the usual stuff about go to ke0lg.net / well, it'd be dcasler.com/support. By the way, they're the same site, except that ke0lg.net goes to a different page than dcasler.com. There's also the super chat available still. And if you want to support the channel, and I know several of you do, several names I recognize in here are patrons. And thank you very much for your patronage. It is greatly appreciated. It enables me to do things like go to the Duke City Ham Fest, and go to the Reno Ham Fest, go to Dayton, and so on. So those are kind of expensive expeditions. But I'm going to be speaking, by the way, at the Duke City Ham Fest, and I'm supposed to be on some sort of a panel that answers questions too. So that's how it will go there. Okay, they've been ages since I've been on. Recently upgraded to general, been playing HF so much, keep forgetting to stop by. Well, good to have you here. How's your shortness of breath going? Well, my pulmonologist told me last time I saw him, after all the tests we had done, I am tempted to put up an internet page. You know, just a page in my regular website says, here's all my test results. What's wrong with me? Because after all these tests they did, he came back and says, yeah, you've got shortness of breath. Great. Thank you. Wow. Okay. All right. We'll talk to you all soon. And I hope that you all have a great Saturday, and that you, as soon as you get off this, you get on the air and warm up those bands. So I'm going to say 73 to all of you, And until we next meet, 73.